Let's go. Olá, pessoal que está acompanhando aqui o Amazonas 3D Printing. Chegou a hora aqui do nosso momento internacional aqui no evento do Amazonas 3D Printing. Uma boa noite para todo mundo. Aqui é Denis Cruz. Eu estou tendo aqui o prazer de conversar com esse cara, o Josef Prusa, que é fundador aí da Prusa 3D. Ele é um criador e inventor nascido aí na República Tcheca e um dos nomes mais famosos da indústria de impressão 3D internacional. O Josef, ele descobriu a sua paixão por impressoras 3D como um estudante da Universidade de Economia da cidade de Praga. Isso foi em 2009. Naquela época, ele considerava a impressão 3D nada mais do que um hobby, uma incrível nova tecnologia aberta a mudanças e para gerar melhorias aí no dia a dia, né? Aí ele resolveu, Josef Prusa resolveu investir no setor e hoje é dono aí de uma das marcas mais usadas no mercado de impressoras 3D no mundo, né? Hoje, com mais de 500 funcionários, a Prusa é atualmente a empresa de tecnologia que mais cresce na Europa Central. Eu estou super feliz de estar tendo essa oportunidade aqui com Josef Prusa. So, Josef, thank you for coming. It's a joy for us to be able to talk to you. Thank you for taking the time to talk to us here on the other side of the world here in Amazon. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having me. And you know what? This is actually the first talk I'm ever giving in Brazil.
Oh.
So it is my premiere. But I'm wondering, you've been speaking for a long time. What you were telling about me, but I will get this translated. And I will see later.
Thank you, Joseph. Just a little over a year ago, you broke the world record for 3D printers operating a room. Can you tell us how you thought about that idea? We can see that in the video in your YouTube channel that you look at the Airwolf 3D record, a past record, and you seem to have an idea. I liked it. This video was fantastic. Tell us, how was this operation?
Well, it was, pretty stressing, I would say. But we originally came up with the idea because, we have a giant 3D printer farm. Now we have over 600 printers printing 24/7. So then someone sent us the link to the world record. Back then, I think we had like 400 printers at the time in our farm. And we were like, guys, we are breaking this world record like every single day. And we should do something about it. And we are very close collective of people. We are just like one giant family. So we like to do crazy, funny stuff which bonds us together. I honestly, I don't think that the world record will push us any further in our pursuit of making the best 3D printers. But it was very nice exercise for my crew to bond together. But there is one very funny requirement in that record that all the printers have to be in one room. And we back then we were just setting up a space for our extrusion lines for the Prusa. So we had the space, but also they all have to be started in like 10 minutes, if I remember correctly. So that required us to have, I don't know, 20 people in that room with the printers to, all of them go there and just click start print on all of them. But we tried that a couple of times, so we were pretty sure that everything will go smoothly. But on the day, the judge from the Guinness World Records came, he said that we have to have independent judge for every 2 operators or something. So in that room, which was very cramped, you can see that in the video, we had like additional 40 to 50 people. We didn't expect to have them there. So it was, I would say, like very crowded subway or something. But we did it anyways. So it was quite fun.
I imagine, Joseph, it was a difficult problem to control the people
Yeah,
at this moment.
yeah,
What's tell more about this operation to control the people and send the commands for all?
yeah. It was, I would say, like orchestra. Normally on our farm, we have five people present, and so we have our rhythm of things. But because of the requirement of the 10 minutes to start all of the printers, we had to have more, which were not used to working on the farm. So I would say it was like training for a theater performance or something.
Uh,
But honestly, I don't remember how many printers we had in that record. I think it was almost 1,100. Is it 1,096? And the previous record was 100 something. But
was a great record.
but we were like, if we are going to do this, let's do it the way that it will last for a while.
Uh-huh. Very good. If someone hasn't seen this video yet, you watch it. It's
Yeah.
really cool to see the excitement of Prusa team and the joy of reaching this world record. This is very nice to see it.
And we also have some on our YouTube channel. We have some more videos about our print farm, so that is fun to watch.
Joseph, the next question is, with the situation of the pandemic, your company helped a lot of the availability of files of face shields, viable inversion, suitable. Your company offered for each region of the world different face shields with the adaptation to them. A version that we use here in actions in partnership with Enable Brazil, Fab Lab, Seabright Lab, and others, served hundreds of health facilities, nurses, and doctors who did not have access to this material immediately. Here in Manaus, we created, Joseph, a group of printers called Liga contra o Covid. A good part of them now are watching this conversation, who have dedicated the hours and late nights to this crazy work. The question is, Joseph, how do you see the mission of 3D printers and the maker culture at this moment when the world is passing by?
That is a very broad question, but I will start from the beginning. So, as we have the giant farm, we were kind of, when all of this started to unfold, we were sure that we want to help, but we didn't want to help just so we can say we helped. So I had a team of designers and process engineers ready when we have the right idea. And I saw that the 3D printing community is starting to make masks, 3D printed respirators, and that was going all around the planet. And I quickly assessed it that, although the respirators look very fancy and they look very, industrial, it is almost impossible to do the quality control of those. And when I realized that they might go into the hospitals, I was kind of scared. If you get 3D printer, 3D printed respirator to a doctor who is in direct contact with with someone infected, and there's just tiny leak, so it doesn't go through the filter and it goes around. It is as if you would have nothing. So I was waiting for something which we can push forward and give back to the 3D printing community, which is safe. And when I saw the face shield concept, I was like, yeah, this makes sense, because this is kind of self-validating itself. It is very easy to know if it's working, because if the piece of the clear plastic is hanging in front of your face, it is helping out. So we immediately started to do prototypes, and I contacted the Czech Ministry of Health. So I go to the people in the first line, and what was very important is that we iterated the design. First requirement I didn't realize before was that it has to work with other protective equipment, which is goggles with indirect ventilation and all the respirators or face mask designs which are in use in the medical field, which might be actually quite big. So over 3 days, every day I brought them a new prototype. And, for me, it was a trip long into the history of 3D printing, because I'm used to that.
Just in 3 days, Prusa, just in 3 days.
I'm used to that. I speak to people who know 3D printing, but these doctors, they didn't know it. And they were like amazed, because every day I brought them a box of 20 new face shields, which had the notes from them from the day before implemented. They were like, what is this? Is this magic? And when we agreed on the final design, the day after, because we have the giant farm, I brought them 800 pieces, and they were like, whoa.
Wow.
Yeah. And, overall, here in Czechia, we donated 250,000, quarter of a million of them, to 4,000 institutions. We didn't donate them outside of the Czech Republic, because that, in the first wave would not be really possible. But we shared the design as open source, as we do with all of our stuff, with a special limitation, which is more constraining than on our printers. I released it under non-commercial license with exemption for getting back the cost of the materials, because not everyone can sponsor this. But I never wanted to see the face shields we designed on the eBay selling for $100 or something like that. And because we had the stamp from the Ministry of Health, and I also paid laboratories to actually test with the live COVID how to disinfect the parts, which was actually the first time someone did that with desktop 3D printers, not the big industrial ones. It took off all around the planet, because people saw that it has the credibility. And then, as you said, there were regional versions, which most of them we didn't do. Honestly, we couldn't track it all around the globe, but I'm very happy that people took our design and modified it. And I would just love to know how many in total of the face shields was made.
I have one here, and that we use here, the fine. So, Prusa, it was a heroic event, heroic work.
But if I may continue, what is very interesting, still to this day, the hospitals are using the shields. even though they are being supplied with from the government, but the government with the contracts, they just have to buy the cheapest, which, you know, is the cheapest, but it doesn't mean that it is nice to use. So they refuse to use the cheap Chinese stuff, and they instead using over and over again the stuff we made. And that is very important for anyone who is making product, new product. It doesn't have to be face shields. If you prototype with real users and it will be nice for them to use it, it is a giant advantage.
It was a worldwide desperation for these masks, for these face shields. We didn't have it on the market, so the whole world used the face shield of the Prusa. It should become a book at some point. And I imagine the press in the world came to you to talk about this project. I saw the name of the Prusa in the New York Times, the Guardian, and so many portals and websites around the world, isn't it?
It was wild.
No.
And, you know, if I should speak about this in general, this was, I would say, the first time the general public, who mostly saw 3D printing is just for tinkerers, that it can, you know, this quickly start producing something. Obviously, it is not very suited for long-term mass production, but it is super effective for the, you know, 3-4 weeks before the traditional production methods can kick in to bridge that gap. So
it was really cool to see my friends talking about the name of the Prusa face shields here. They don't have idea about your job, was talking with me, Dennis, do it to me, I need the Prusa face shields. So it was very, very fun here for us. Joseph, our conversation is about the future of 3D printing here. We know that in relation to the raw material that can be used for printing, there are more than 200 materials that can create a beautiful 3D sculpture from plastics, ceramics, glass, rubber, leather, and even stem cells and the chocolate. The question is, Joseph, what would be the chance in the way of printing and the equipment in the coming years, in your opinion?
well, the future of the materials. Right now, you know, the 3D printing for the traditional polymer manufacturers is still just, you know, a side thing, because, you know, we have one of the biggest factories for making filament, but we still use just, you know, 30 tons of the polymers each month. But that is peanut. If you just look at one small regional factory which is making bottled water, they consume so much more. But honestly, I see a big difference in this nowadays, that you start to see more polymers being tailored for just 3D printing. You know, NatureWorks are doing PLA blends for just 3D printing. But there's still, I would say, nothing mass market ready, which is completely biodegradable in the thermoplastic side of things, which, you know, most of our listeners use. But there are some good things on the horizon we can start to see, which is I'm sorry, I don't know how to tell it in English, but polymer called PBHT, which is actually done by fermenting oil, which can be like used use fry oil, and it is fully biodegradable, because it is starting to show up that even though PLA is biodegradable to some extent, it is not very viable on the big scale. So ourselves, we are investing in a factory which might be able to make this polymer in the bigger scale. So I'm quite excited about that, but it is much longer term project than we are used to right now. But I take it as a responsibility to look into these things and not just wait what will the free market come up with, because otherwise it might never shift in that direction of responsibility to the nature. And I'm very happy that I can use our name to push the industry into this direction.
Sure. And for companies, micro entrepreneurs, how do you see this revolution using 3D?
So I didn't hear you correctly. If you can repeat the question.
And for using 3D in micro entrepreneurs, for little companies, how do you see this revolution using the 3D printer?
Oh, small startups, it might be a couple who starts a business together, or dad and daughter. We saw all of this, and it is democratizing the manufacturing for them, because some of the businesses are very niche and very focused, and without 3D printing they would never be able to even start, because the traditional manufacturing methods would cost just too much to set up. And this, if you are doing series of hundreds of something a month, it is perfect. And you can also quickly iterate, which is what we are using to this date. When we release a product and we get a feedback from the customers, we see, okay, after a month or two, we see people struggle with this bit of assembly of the printer. We might think of a better way to do it. The printer works, but by no means it's bad, but we see a potential to optimize it, to make it better. And if we would use the traditional manufacturing methods like injection molding, the molds cost a lot of money, and you have to output certain amount of the parts out of them for themselves to pay for it. And modifying them is not always viable. But if we are using 3D printers, we modify the design and just upload new file to the farm, and like this, we are making the new version. And this is amazing.
I like the word that you said, democracy in production. It's very, very good. What was previously done by major brands is in our hands.
Yes.
Cheaper and faster.
And on our YouTube channels, we are trying to do stories from companies like that. We call it Prusa Stories. So if anyone is interested, they can take a look at some of these small companies which are working with 3D printing.
Joseph, about the environment, we are from here in the Amazon forest thinking about ways to use increasingly recyclable and sustainable materials. The question is, how has Prusa acted in this direction in favor of the environment?
Oh, there are so many ways we can look at this. So I will just try to name a few of them. First of all, if you know our company, we are not making the products intentionally obsolete. So always when we release a new printer, we provide upgrade kits so people can have the newest model, which means that they don't throw away the old one and just buy a new one, which has a perfectly good parts which can work for much longer. And the percentage of people who are actually upgrading the printers instead of buying new is enormous. So that is, I would say, one of the big things, because you know how it works with computers and, you know, all the appliances. They will just break, you know, 2 years after you buy them, and they don't provide any replacement parts, and, you know, it's obsolete because they don't update the iPhone app or something like that. So you have to throw it away. Then with 3D printing, I'm thinking, if you are making something for yourself, you are pretty sure that you are going to use it, and the materials can be produced with PLA. Not that it is happening just right now, but it is possible. And same with the polymer I spoke about before. You can produce it locally, and you just print it. There is no waste of the packaging materials, because you know how wasteful the product packaging sometimes is. I mean, if you are buying something like a flash drive for your computer, the flash drive itself doesn't have that much big of an impact, but you have giant plastic packaging which just serves the purpose for you to cut it open and throw away, which I find scandalous. And, you know, most of this stuff is also manufactured on the other side of the world and travels on the cargo ships, which is one of the dirtiest mode of travel ever. So I'm thinking that 3D printing can have big impact even now, but when we have fully biodegradable polymers, it will be, I mean, the way of the future.
It's a very important for the environment. This procedure of Prusa is interesting. So many brands, Joseph, use the concept of the programmed obsolescence and force us to buy a new equipment every year. So it's so important.
Yeah. So, you know, I'm very happy that if you buy a printer from us, if we release a new one, you can upgrade it. And, you know, actually people love it. Can you imagine if they would do it with phones or TVs? You know, TVs are the same thing. You have perfectly good imaging device, the LCD itself, but the Android or the PC on the back is getting obsolete much faster. But, you know, when it stops supporting the modern standards, you just throw away the whole TV. But they want you to throw it away. But if you could upgrade it, it would be wonderful.
Joseph, let's talk about politics, a complicated topic right now. There are some bills in some countries that stimulate innovation with the financing and the incentives. I'd like to know what's the scenario do you live in your country, and what are the best practices in your country about politics for 3D printing that can inspire us here in our reality?
So I would say the legal framework and the political framework is still not yet realizing there is something like 3D printing. And with us, as we are part of European Union, most of this stuff would be handled on the European Union level. But, you know, right now there's, I wouldn't say that much legislation. We are operating under the same laws as if you are making any other appliance. So there's not much thinking about it, but I'm thinking that as we are one of the market leaders, we are the ones who are setting the standards for others. And, you know, as we are, I would like to call us call ourselves the nice guys. There, because of that, there wasn't any friction because of something shady happening yet. So there's no need for any new legislation or politics for 3D printing just yet.
I think there's a lot to do in this area in every country.
Yeah, but I think what is close to us is the right to repair movement, which is something we talked about in the previous question. And the 3D printing might be very close to this because, there might be a legislation that, if you stop supporting the product and you don't want to repair it anymore, maybe you should be motivated to provide the parts for, manufacturing like 3D printers. So people can actually repair it, 10, 20 years after you actually buy it. We will see.
Joseph, let's talk about the future, about your future. How do you imagine it? Prusa printer in the next 10 years? Printing on the moon or in other planets?
I will. That is a question I never knew the answer for. The Prusa research is actually just 8 years old, and every year is just such, I would say, a ride that, when I made goals for myself, it always either surpassed it so much or just went a completely different, more awesome way that I have no idea what will happen in 10 years. 3 years ago, I had 50 people working with me. Now it's 600. And if you would ask me 3 years ago, I would never, ever guess that. So I would say it is, at least for me, it is better to not constrain myself by planning something and just going with the flow and doing the stuff we know the best we can. Is that okay?
Okay. I know it's difficult to predict the future at this moment. I know. But Joseph, our time is gone. I appreciate your talk with us. We have here watching us some users who have been working with the 3D printing for some years, and also people here watching us taking their first steps in 3D printer. People who follow you on your YouTube channel and they are inspired by your work. What could you say to these friends who are lovers of 3D printing, who live by 3D printing, not only here in Amazonas, but in other states of Brazil, that are watching us? What could you say for these friends that live by 3D printing?
I would say don't be afraid to try printing new stuff, not just the stuff you find online. And, there are what I'm finding myself every month or, every few months, we just realized that a completely new, how you say it, genre of business, which is doing something, realizes that, oh, there's a thing like a 3D printing and we can use it. And also don't feel constrained that the 3D printer has to make the final product. It can be part of the process. For example, like it can give a shape to something. You print something, you make a mold out of it, and then you make it out of different material. For example, good example is people working with chocolate. Printing chocolate doesn't make sense, but you can get a standard 3D printer. You can print something, make a mold, and then you can mold your chocolate with this. Think out of the box and don't be afraid to try new things.
Joseph, once again, thank you so much, and I invite you as soon as you can come to visit us here in Amazonas, Brazil, to get to know our forest, our nature. So I just want to thank you. I want to say thank you very much to you.
Thank you. It was an honor.
Então, pessoal, finalizamos aqui essa nossa conversa, essa nossa entrevista com o Josef Prusa. Continue com o evento Amazonas 3D Printing. Espero que você esteja gostando. E, enfim, faça os seus comentários. Esse evento é feito não apenas para o pessoal do Amazonas, mas para o Brasil todo. A gente está tendo aqui boas conversas. Essa com o Josef Prusa foi mais uma delas, que espero que inspire você a continuar trabalhando com impressão 3D. Continue com o evento.